Hi, you guys. Welcome back to the Good Gluten-Free Grub podcast. Today, as I promised, I was going to have my husband on and we're going to talk about our trip to the UK. So welcome, Jared, to the
Thank you.
podcast.
Thank you.
He's been on a couple of times before, and it's always fun to have him on because one, he has a better memory than me, and two, I just love doing everything with him. Today we are going to talk about our trip to the UK, and it's mostly going to be about food, but we will also share like some of our very favorite things that we did in case you want to plan a trip to London, Dover, Edinburgh, Scotland, Inverness, the Scottish Highlands. We had an absolute blast. So I'll kind of just start with walk you through the 10 days basically. I mean, there's some days that were like travel days, but um
And just like focusing on what we ate. Is that right?
yeah, what we ate and like how we navigated it because I preach this and I talk about this all the time that preparation is key for having a successful vacation. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everything always goes according to plan. And even though we had a 10-day itinerary planned, I had restaurants picked for every day, all of that, there still were like things that went wrong. And so you have to be prepared with a backup plan, right?
Yeah. And I can think of lots of examples.
Oh, that went wrong?
Yeah. You want to start with day one?
Yeah, well, we'll start with the flight. So we flew Delta, and with Delta and most airlines in general, if you need a gluten-free meal, you do have to book that gluten-free meal 48 hours in advance. Like if you wait 47 hours, the option is no longer there. So I booked my gluten-free flight just inside the Delta app, and you can just choose like in their special requests or things like that. And you can choose in the Delta app to choose a gluten-free meal. So I chose a gluten-free meal, but I also brought a meal on the plane just in case the meal sucked. So at the Salt Lake Airport, there's lots of actually good gluten-free options, which I did. I have like a little like Terminal A gluten-free options in Terminal A at the Salt Lake International Airport. So you can go look at that on my Instagram. But I ate at Vessel Kitchen, and Vessel Kitchen is, well, I didn't eat there. I got a meal from there and I brought it on the flight because what time did we book our flight? Like 5:15 in the evening. So it was like my body was going to be ready for dinner soon anyway. So we ended up booking the flight, and Jared and I didn't get to sit next to each other, and the flight was 10 hours long, 9 hours,
Yeah, 10.
almost 11 hours long, something like that. So I knew I needed to have food and snacks and things like that. Um, I I'm trying to think if I booked a breakfast. I didn't. I didn't,
What do you mean
right?
booked a breakfast?
Like for the flight.
Yeah, you got the same amount of meals that we did. So we
So what did
got
I get for
we got a
breakfast?
dinner that night, and then in the morning before we landed, you got another meal. It's another breakfast.
Why can't, oh, I remember now. Okay. So, I brought the meal on the flight with me as a backup plan, and I did end up eating that because it was just better than what the airline had brought me. But then when the airline brought me my food, it was a, what do you call this? Mm, okay, I have a picture of it. Oh, so it was gluten-free meatballs with polenta. And I opened it up and it didn't like look super appetizing, but I'm like, of course I'm gonna try it. So I got a slice of cheese and I got carrots and I got a Greek salad and I got the gluten-free meatballs with the polenta. And it was all actually really good. Like I ended up eating all of it except for the slice of cheese. And I was so surprised by that. So that was a huge win. But the breakfast the next morning on the flight was not great. So I could have been more prepared. Did you get yogurt?
No, we just got it was like a Nutella, some sort of Nutella pastry, but it wasn't, I mean, it wasn't good either.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
typically airline food like isn't the best. So that's why like preparation is always better. So for breakfast, I ended up getting a small bowl of fruit, and like by fruit, it was two slices of honeydew, not slices, two cubes of honeydew and a cube of um
Cantaloupe.
cantaloupe. And then egg whites with cheese on like a little roll, dinner roll, which was not good either. So I didn't end up eating that, which was fine because I'm not typically a breakfast person anyway, but I could have been prepared to have something that was more breakfasty for me. I think I did end up taking the egg whites off of the sandwich and just ate the egg whites and the fruit so that I had something in my stomach because I didn't sleep super great on the flight. Like I think I slept maybe 3 hours total on that 10-hour flight. And so we left Salt Lake City at 5 and we arrived in London the next day at like 10 a.m. So it was like hit the ground running. We have to get to our Airbnb, we have to check our bags in, and then like we need to go get food. So that was our first priority.
Just on booking, one thing that Lauren forgot to do was book her gluten-free meals for the flight home.
Yeah.
So she
We just
didn't have.
got busy. Like I just got busy and I forgot to set a reminder. So like on our flight from London back to Salt Lake City, I forgot to book it. And I think it was like 45 hours before the flight. Not so sorry. It was more than 24 hours before the flight. So I was like hopeful that I'm like, oh, it's still 24 hours before the flight.
No, but you
And
could.
the option was not there. So like it has to be 48 hours before your flight, or else you do not get an option. But luckily the food options at the London Heathrow Airport were great. And I ended up able to get like a ham and turkey and cheese melt sandwich that they like press in a panini presser in between parchment paper for you. We'll get to that and like how great it was to eat in the UK. But the first day, our first stop that we wanted to get to, which, you know, when you're traveling, you're like in your mind, you're like, okay, by 1 o'clock, we're going to get to lunch. And it was just like us like having huge bags of luggage, backpacks, carry-ons, all this stuff. And we're just like traveling by bus. So we get to go on a train for a little while, then we have to get on a bus and we're hauling all this luggage to our Airbnb to check it in. And that's just exhausting in general. Like keep in mind we slept for how long did you sleep on that plane?
I probably slept like an hour.
Yeah, like we're just running on fumes basically. So our first stop on the first day was to a place that I had found doing my research through using like gluten-free London hashtags. And it was really cool because we just like walked there. And so we were able to see so much of the city. But this place that we got lunch the first day is called Hobson's Fish and Chips. And there are multiple locations throughout the city. And they even have like a sign out front that says gluten-free fish and chips. They have a dedicated fryer. They have dedicated like um malt, what is it called? Vinegar. So they have regular vinegar and they have malt vinegar, and they say like, oh, this one's our gluten-free one, this one's not gluten-free. And they, you know, so I was really, really well taken care of there. And then when your food comes out, it has a big sticker on it that says it's the gluten-free fish and chips. The only like downside to this meal specifically is I feel like we were so eager to like eat and we were so hungry and we were like, we're in London, we're gonna get fish and chips. And we were rushing to an appointment at the Sky Garden. And so our food was not ideal because we were like eating it on the go and eating it on the train. So our food was like kind of cold. So prepare better than I did and give yourself enough time so that you can actually sit down and eat the food fresh instead of eating it on the go, because didn't you feel like the food just wasn't as good as an experience because of that?
Yeah, I mean it was like it was fine fish and chips, but like, you know, you go to London and you're anticipating having like some of the best fish and chips in your life. And like I mean I grew up on the east coast of Nova Scotia, east coast of Canada in Nova Scotia, so like I've had really good fish and chips, and I've brought Lauren back and we've had gluten-free fish
Really
and
good
chips
fish
there.
and
And
chips, yeah.
yeah, so like we've had really good fish, and this was fine. We actually, we'll get to it, but later we kind of had a redeeming fish and chips night
Yeah.
at a pub in Scotland, and it was fantastic. But yeah, this was just kind of like a on the go. When we first went in, the guy, like Lauren was asking her normal questions, and I felt like this was the first restaurant that we went to, and really the only one this whole trip, but the guy seemed like he was getting a little annoyed about all the questions that Lauren was asking. Now, with hindsight looking back, I think it's because, and we'll talk a lot about this, but uh, in the UK and in Scotland, in terms of food allergies and the precautions they take, they're just so much more advanced and more accommodating than they are here in the
Mm.
US. So that may have been why he was like a little
He was
annoyed.
like, yeah, annoying. Like it just kind of felt like he was like, yeah, yes, of course, yeah, yeah. Like almost like being like, you don't need to ask these questions. Like, we'll take care of you here. But like, he wasn't like super friendly.
Yeah, yeah. But
So
here in a restaurant, Lauren would need to advocate a lot.
yeah, I would
Yeah,
need to ask all those questions, like dedicated fryer and, the breading and just
yeah,
everything like that. And he just was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And because he answered that way, I was like, is he just like not being like friendly, or is he just like not caring? But we came to learn that it's just like, yeah, like Jared said, over there, like they are like, you have celiac disease, you need gluten free. We will do whatever, like we have protocols in place for that. And like maybe I don't know. Maybe honestly, it was just that one restaurant that we had not a negative experience, just not like the most positive experience, but
yeah. But in general, I'll say like every restaurant that we went to, especially any sit down ones, like the first thing they would ask us when we walked through the door is if anybody had any food allergies.
every
You know,
restaurant.
which here is like much more rare. And then as soon as we told them that Lauren had celiac disease or a gluten allergy, they would bring her either like her own menu, or sometimes it was on a tablet with like a matrix breaking down all the ingredients and what she could and couldn't have. And it wasn't just like she didn't have to talk to the head chef to get this information.
No,
The ho
everyone knew
the
everything.
hostesses knew
Yeah.
what was gluten free. Like that would never happen here. Here, a hostess might not even know what gluten is, right?
Yeah.
And
Hostess
then
could be a teenager.
maybe your waitress knows, but they might have talked to the manager or the chef. Not there at all. Like um,
Everyone's trained.
yeah, everyone is just trained. They know what has gluten, what doesn't, and yeah, it was just like it was phenomenal to experience that.
Yeah. So that day, so we got that for lunch and we ended up doing like all the fun tourist things. We went up the Sky Garden, which is like one of the biggest, tallest buildings in London, and
And
it's
it's free.
free. So that was really cool. You just have to make a reservation online. And so we went up to the Sky Garden and you can get like drinks up there. There's a bar up there. There's a huge garden, like gardens, like tropical gardens, and then like outdoor wraparound um balcony that you can see the like huge whole city, and it's so cool. So then we walked around and we went and saw Big Ben and got, all the traditional like touristy pictures, which was really fun.
Yeah, we went to Buckingham Palace.
Hmm.
And that was fun, but the clouds actually above the palace were prettier
The
than we
clouds
thought. Yeah.
the clouds that
The
day were
sky
like,
was
we
like
just
pink.
kept being like, the sky is so beautiful. We're like, forget Buckingham Palace, like the clouds are so beautiful.
But then that night we had for dinner, what's the name of the chicken place we went to?
So we went to a place that I had found on Atlee, that I had used Atlee to search for this restaurant. And I had also seen this restaurant, like people reviewing it that live in London, that I follow, because in preparation for this trip, like I was following gluten-free London accounts. One specifically, there's a girl, her Instagram account is called How to Celiac, and she's got lots of awesome reviews on there. So I had this place written down. So it's kind of near Piccadilly Circus. So Piccadilly Circus is just a cool place to go in general, somewhere that you would go as a tourist anyway.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit around a couple blocks from there. So this area is called Carnaby, and we had originally planned to go to a restaurant called Dishoom, which had really great reviews. It's like um an Indian like jazz kitchen. I don't know how else to explain it, but the reviews were insane. So we get there and there's like a long line of people that are waiting to like get a table. And we were like starving and tired. And we were
But I
like,
will
well, should
say,
we just get in line?
well, yeah, while you're in line, if you're outside, they do bring you
They bring
like
you like chai
chai tea,
tea
and
or
it
like
was
mint
so,
tea
yeah, and it
to
was
keep
so
you
good.
warm. Because it was like chilly in the evenings. Um, and just for reference, like we went on this trip October 1st. So we were there like at the very beginning of fall, basically. So like the days were really nice, the evenings were just chilly. So we get in this line and the table wait is like an hour. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do because this place is like, this is the place that I had chosen for that day. So then I ended up pulling up Atlee and just seeing if there's anywhere else nearby us. And this area is called Carnaby, and there's actually lots of gluten-free eats places in this area. So I'm like, you guys stay in line. I'm just gonna go walk around and see what else I can find. So I go walk around like quite literally like 100 yards. It's 100 yards far. How far is 100 yards?
I think that's like a football field.
Okay, maybe it wasn't that far, 50 yards. So I go walking just kind of around the corner and I find two different places that we can eat at. One of them was a dumpling place. It wasn't 100% gluten-free, but they had a gluten-free menu. It had really great reviews on Atlee and Find Me Gluten-Free. And then another place called El Pelote, and El Pelote didn't have a wait. So I was like, let's just go here because we're starving.
We kind of got the vibe like the friends we were with didn't want to go to the dumpling place either. So.
They like aren't crazy about dumplings.
So yeah, went to this chicken place and what's it called again?
El Pelote.
And I had some like their main dish that they're most famous for. What was the name of it? It was like a Peruvian.
It was like a
It's like it was like a spicy, sticky, sweet chicken, like fried chicken.
Uh-huh.
And it was gluten free, but
well, this place El Pelote is like 99% gluten free. They have like 2 items on their menu that aren't gluten free, but everything else is. So
that was one of my favorite meals of the trip was this chicken.
Yeah, it was really good chicken.
Delicious.
And we ate outside. They had like heat lamps and stuff. And then I got some empanadas and like a slaw. I'm like such a sucker for any sort of like yummy slaw. So I got a couple empanadas and a slaw, and then Jared got the chicken, which was really good, really good. Our friends got chicken sandwiches. And then we got a brownie, a gluten-free brownie with ice cream on top with like caramel sauce drizzled on top, all gluten-free at this restaurant. So this is all in this general area called Carnaby, which is near Piccadilly Circus, and there are lots of options there. So like even if you can't eat at Dishoom or you can't eat at El Pelote, like there are still options around. So just keep that in mind that that's a cool area to grab some food.
Yeah, like on a later day, we actually came back to this area and we did go to the dumpling place.
Yeah, our friends went and ate somewhere else, and we were like, let's go get those dumplings because they had like several dumpling options. I think I took a picture of it. Let me just see because.
Yeah, there was like, a mushroom truffle dumpling, a curry dumpling. It's like
they're all just like little handmade dumplings. And I feel like in the UK, they call dumplings what we would call pot stickers. Like, I feel like they were more like a pot sticker than they were a dumpling. So anyway, they have a gluten-free menu, and we ended up going back on another night and we ate there, and we got the prawn and chive dumplings. It's called the ugly dumpling. We got the prawn and chive dumplings, satay chicken, curry paneer dumplings, mushroom and truffle, and then we must have got 2. We must have got 2 of the prawn ones.
Yeah.
Anyway, they have like tempura veggies. They have like gluten-free soy sauce. And then they do like gluten-free sweet dumplings too. So it's just like a cool little experience. It's small, like it's a teeny tiny little like shop on the corner, like restaurant on the corner. Like I think it probably like can hold like 12 people at once, but they have outdoor seating too.
One of the coolest parts of the whole trip, I'd say, is just the amount of restaurants that we ate at, like at least 2 a day. And Lauren didn't get sick like a single time.
No.
Not even like, cross-contamination sick.
Yeah.
Which was just amazing.
So the next day, okay, so this is day 2. Wow. We've been going for a while and we're only on day 2. Okay. So day 2, we wanted to do some markets, and then we went to a market, and everyone else got like a breakfast sandwich from like a gluten place, but I was looking for a specific bakery that I had seen online, and I'm wandering around everywhere at this market, and I'm pulling up my Google Maps, and I'm like, it should be right here. Like it should be here. And I searched, could not find it. And then like after doing more like digging, I found out that it was only open on Saturdays and Sundays. And so I was like, dang it, that was my breakfast. Like that was supposed to be my breakfast. So now I'm like, okay, everyone else got breakfast. I didn't get breakfast. So I just ended up getting like a tea, like so that I could like walk around with something to drink. And then, so that was a little bit of a disappointment because like I was prepared, but then it fell through, and then it's like, okay, well now what do I do? And I was just kind of like scrambling. In this specific scenario, we went on a trip with friends. So like if it was just Jared and I, Jared would have been like, oh, let's just go find another place and like hop on a train and like just go find it. And like that's what we'll make of our morning. But because we were with other friends, we didn't want to like drag them around looking for specific gluten-free bakeries and restaurants.
Even though they would have been willing.
They would,
They're
yeah,
like
they would have been willing. But I just
But
was
Lauren
like,
doesn't want to inconvenience them.
yeah, I'm like, if it was just Jared and I, the situation would have been different, but it's totally fine. So anyway, we ended up seeing one of the La Durée macaron shops, which is like Jared and I's favorite macaron shop.
Yeah,
so that was my
I
breakfast.
feel like we discovered them at Versailles.
We
right?
discovered, yeah, when we were
We
in
went to
Paris.
Versailles, and the best part was the macarons.
Yeah, we were like,
Yeah.
forget this museum. These macarons are the best thing I've ever had. So then for lunch that day, we ended up going to, is it called Borough Market?
Yeah, it's like a huge
Yeah, Borough Market. It's
food
like
market.
the
Like,
biggest.
we're talking hundreds of food vendors.
Oh yeah, and it's all a
Yeah,
food market.
and thousands of people there.
Thousands of people
any time
eating.
of the day. This was like the middle of a day on like a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And just like tons of people there. And yeah, Lauren got some Indian food.
And at this
there.
market, I had seen on Find Me Gluten Free and Atlee and the apps and everything that there was a bakery called the Free From Bakehouse.
Yeah.
And it was like all bakery items. So like I could not resist like the slices of cake. I ended up getting 2 slices of cake.
Was it a pistachio?
A pistachio raspberry cake and then
the mango. No.
some sort of mango coconut cake.
Yeah, mango.
Anyway, so good. It was like on a mango coconut cake and pistachio
That's
cake.
Right, yeah.
It was so good. So
and then you got some Indian food.
Yeah, so I still am working on content for places to eat, but I do have like stuff on TikTok and on Instagram of like and like all the companies that we ate at, like the restaurants I tagged. So there were a couple of places to eat at. Some I would consider celiac safe, others I would not, like more just like gluten-free options. So again, just like make sure you ask your questions and your due diligence. I did end up finding some Indian food that was pretty spicy, like my nose was running. But when I asked them like my questions, they were like, yes, we have a dedicated fryer, we have this, we have that, like. And it was all vegan. It was like a vegan. So I got 3 different curries with rice and like coriander and cilantro on top. It was really good. And they had like fried appetizer type things that were in a dedicated fryer. So if you go to Borough Market, just know that there are options there. And then for the rest of our day, that day, we went to the Harry Potter studio tour, experience, which was, it's outside of the city. You have to take a train and a bus out there, and then we spent like 4 hours there doing the Harry Potter tour, and there isn't food there to eat. So I ended up eating my cake that I bought that morning at the market.
There is food, but not.
Yeah, there is food, but not gluten-free food.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna go to the Harry Potter tour, bring lunch with you. Bring
you had
food
like
with you.
the butter, like the butter beer and
the butter beer and the butterbeer ice cream were both gluten-free.
Yeah.
Didn't you even say they had a gluten-free cone?
They did, yeah.
Yeah, they had a gluten-free cone. So like you can get a treat there, but if you're going to be there for 4 hours and you're going during dinner time or lunchtime, like I would recommend bringing something to eat. Because I didn't have anything to eat. I had butterbeer, and then I ended up on the train ride, I ended up eating another slice of cake on the bus. So then that night we got back into London, and we were it was getting late. Like it was a late night. Like it was probably like 10 o'clock, and we were like, we need to get some food. So we ate at a place in Notting Hill, which is kind of near Buckingham Palace. It's called Los Mochis. It's more like a tapas restaurant. So small bites, shareable bites. So we all got it, and it's 100% gluten-free.
Yeah, it's a Mexican Japanese fusion restaurant.
Yeah, really interesting.
Which is kind of a cool idea. And it was definitely unique, and some of the food was delicious. It did take a long time to get a table. That took a long time for the food to come.
But they brought us free drinks because of that.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, like we all left
not super full.
We weren't full, and the bill was like, over $100 each type of thing.
It was expensive. It's definitely like drinks and tapas. Don't go there if you're like, I'm starving, let's go eat. It's like, hey, let's go hang out and get a tapas and a drink.
Super cool vibes in the restaurant.
Really cool vibes.
Yeah, I think if we weren't starving and if it didn't take so long, to
Mm-hmm.
get all of our food and everything, like it would have been a better experience. But
Yeah.
like, but
Still, food was good,
yeah,
just
there's
wasn't
a
filling.
couple of bites I took there. Like we got the do you
You
remember
got
the
some
name
like
of the tacos?
bang bang shrimp or shrimp
Yes, some
tacos.
sort of shrimp tacos
And then we got
with
sushi. We got some
bang in the
really
name.
we got some really yummy sushi and it had guacamole on top of the sushi and like a jalapeno
Yeah.
slice. So
But
like
pretty
eight,
much
yeah,
everything was
18.
gluten free.
No,
Oh yeah,
it
it
was
was 100%.
100%.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no gluten in the whole restaurant,
Yeah.
which was really cool.
Yeah. So just keep in mind, definitely a cool place to eat at, but not like a I'm starving, let's go eat there. It's more like, hey, let's go get a drink and have a bite. Like that's more of the vibe. Um, so that was day 2. And then day 3,
That was day 3 was tea time.
oh yeah, so day 3 was tea time. We made a reservation to get high tea at Fortnum and Mason Hotel. And this was super, super fun. So we had spent the day like riding our bikes around Hyde Park and seeing like the Orangery Gardens and Kensington Palace. And then we went to tea time. So tea time was like one of my favorite things that we did. I had to make a reservation ahead of time. But honestly, we made this reservation the day before. Like it was not terribly hard to get the reservation. Like you could make the reservation a couple days before. Um, and the gluten-free option is always there. It's not like you have to reserve ahead of time and they have to make it ahead of time. It's like it's there 24/7, 365 days a year. Like
Yeah.
you can get the gluten-free option.
The 3 of us besides Lauren that were there all got the gluten option, and I loved all of my food. Lauren, I know you some of it wasn't the best, but
Unfortunately,
the experience like
yeah.
was so fun and good that like it didn't really taint your
Yeah,
cup
I
in
was
a
like,
food
I don't even
way.
care that this bread isn't the best gluten-free bread I've ever had. And like, they didn't really bring me scones, which I was really disappointed in because I've been to high tea at other places and I've had scones, like even here in Utah. And I know that you can get gluten-free scones. Like I've watched
Well,
enough
later on the
Instagram
trip you
reels.
had
Yeah,
gluten-free
later on the
scones.
trip
Yeah.
I did get one. And I'm like, this is what I was expecting at high tea. So I just it was kind of just like a sweet roll. That, I had the clotted cream and the jam and all that stuff, but it wasn't a scone. So I was a little bit disappointed in that. The sandwiches, like what was inside the sandwiches was really good, but the bread was not my favorite. Like I
But the
just,
top tier was desserts,
yeah.
right?
And the top tier was like all these like, what are they called?
Patissier,
Patisserie, like
like
desserts, like
yeah.
little finger. Anyway, so good. And the coolest thing about getting tea time at this place is all the plates and all the tiers are refillable. So like we all got like our sandwiches refilled, we all got our dessert plates refilled, and all 4 of us got different tea options so that we could try everyone else's tea. And that was super fun. So like, yeah, the desserts, we were like, can we get another plate? And all of us asked for like a third dessert plate so that we could take it home in like our little to-go box because they let us do that. And they were like, yeah, whatever you want. Like they just treated us so good and like we had such a cool experience and our
Which
waiter.
I'm glad because it's like $90 a person.
Yeah,
So.
it was a really expensive
But it was a
experience.
really fancy hotel and like traditional, like tea time,
Yeah.
high tea.
And the Fortnum and
Yeah.
Mason Hotel is just really cool because like every floor has different things. So like the floor we were on was the tea floor, and then like the second floor is like a Christmas floor. So we like went and explored the Christmas floor. Anyway, it was just a really cool experience. Definitely recommend. Now there are lots of different places that you can get tea time. Um, and you don't have to go to Fortnum and Mason, but it was a cool experience. But I mean, based on other reviews, like maybe you could get better food somewhere else. But I don't know if other places like refill every tier whenever you want it refilled.
Yeah.
I can't speak to that. I don't know. But overall, loved the experience. Food was, a 7 out of 10. Desserts were 10 out of 10. Food was 6.5 out of 10.
My food was 10 out of 10.
Yeah. If you're a gluten eater and you're going with gluten eaters, they'll have a great experience. Not to say my experience wasn't great. I've just had better tea time experiences here in Salt Lake City.
In terms of the food.
In terms of the food. The Grand America Hotel in Salt Lake City downtown, if you ever come to Salt Lake City, you should go do tea time there because
But it's not refillable.
It's not refillable. Yeah. No, it's just you get a top tier, a middle tier, and a bottom tier, and that's all you get.
Yeah.
So
then we hopped on the train to Dover that night. We wanted to see the White Cliffs of Dover, so we just got there pretty late. I don't think we ate anything that night.
No.
Yeah, because we were so full, because we all like stuffed our faces at tea time.
At tea time.
Yeah.
And then we took like an evening train down there.
Yeah. And then the next day, we saw the Dover Castle, and then we hiked the White Cliffs of Dover, which were just amazing. I brought my drone, and got some really awesome video of the cliffs. And we had perfect weather. It was like t-shirt weather. We were hiking in Scotland or in England, thinking we were gonna need
We were gonna be
jackets.
cold. We were so hot.
Yeah. Yeah. But then after, oh, actually, sorry, I skipped over breakfast.
Yeah, our hotel had breakfast,
Mhm.
and I went down to the lobby like later in the evening, and I saw that they had gluten-free options. And then I also saw that there was a cafe that was like separate from like the hotel, what would you call it? Continental breakfast kind of. And they had gluten-free options. They had a huge gluten-free cake. They're like, we can do a la carte eggs, bacon. We have gluten-free bread. We have a gluten-free toaster, like all that stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna be able to find breakfast in the morning. So I wasn't worried about that in the morning. So we woke up the next morning and everyone got like traditional kind of English breakfast, like tomatoes, mushrooms, beans on toast, eggs.
The hotel breakfast wasn't a continental breakfast. It was a full breakfast with
Yeah, it was a
bacon,
full
eggs,
breakfast. I
potatoes.
wasn't there when you were there, but did you order it or it was
No,
like a bar?
it was buffet.
It was like a
Yeah.
buffet.
And the hash browns in the UK are like thick,
super thick,
like
yeah.
thick triangles, but they are like probably an inch and a half thick. They're deep fried, so they're crispy on the outside, but like super gooey on the inside, and it's like a thick hash brown.
Jared loved those.
Yeah, those are really good. So do you end up getting something from the cafe then?
Yes, I ended up ordering an omelet with gluten-free toast from the little cafe, and they came and brought it to me like in the hotel restaurant.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's what we ate for breakfast, and then we went and did the hike.
And you didn't have to call ahead or anything?
No,
Yeah.
it was just available. Yeah.
Mhm.
So one thing that I do regret is not bringing enough snacks on that hike, because we were hiking for a couple hours. Like we were hiking for several hours actually.
Yeah.
And it's not a hike, it's like a paved trail, right? Not paved, but like
any sort of walking outside for Lauren is a hike though.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I hate hiking.
yeah. But then we after the castle, we had lunch at Nando's.
Yeah, and I had wanted to try Nando's because I knew it's like a traditional like English place, or like a London restaurant. So we got Nando's. They had good protocols. I did have to ask a couple of extra questions because I think the waitress, or like the waitress was maybe a little new. She had to go ask her manager.
But once the manager came, it was like, oh yeah,
it was all
bam,
fine.
bam, bam. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got wings and fries and a salad. And then
it was really good. The only thing is we were so rushed because we were trying to catch a train to Scotland that night. So we were just like scarfing it down, but it was really good.
Yeah, we definitely didn't get to sit and enjoy. We were scarfing our faces so that we could hop in an Uber and get to the train station and get on the train that took us up to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
So the train to Edinburgh was how many hours long? 7 hours?
It was a 7-hour ride, yeah. And we had like, unfortunately, someone got hit by a train, that not the train we were on, but another train that delayed us, and it was kind of a big mess.
It was stressful.
Yeah. But on the train, I went down to the concession stand a couple of times, and they had gluten-free brownie,
desserts,
multiple gluten-free desserts.
What did we eat for food that night? What did we eat in general?
Just the Nando's.
So that the Nando's must have been at like 4 o'clock.
Yeah, and then we had like some snacks with us, and then
we had
you got that brownie on the train.
And chomps. I brought like chips, and I brought some chomps, and then Jared ordered me like a little brownie from the concessions.
And I remember that as well. The trains in Italy last time we went to Europe, they also had gluten-free stuff. So I just feel like, if I boarded a train in the US, I would not expect
never
free options.
Never.
But yeah, I just like it was a whole theme, like of just being shocked by the gluten-free precautions and the options. Like even at the airport, when we're like, you touched on this earlier, you got that melt.
Yeah, they had like a kiosk of like grab and go sandwiches, and they even had gluten-free grab and go sandwiches at the kiosk.
And they had a place to cook them.
Yeah, they had a gluten-free warmer. And
here in the States, I feel like if they had that, they'd be like, oh yes, but we cook them on the same.
Yeah, like they wouldn't.
Yeah, it was just like, so there was always options. So.
It was honestly just positive experience after positive experience. Like I just felt like we were just, yeah, shocked by how awesome it was. So then we get to Edinburgh that night, and the next day is Sunday, and we only have one day in Edinburgh because we wanted to spend majority of our time in Scotland up in the Highlands. So that was a Sunday, and we did like the Royal Mile. We walked the Royal Mile and saw the Edinburgh Castle, which is definitely what Hogwarts is created from, because it just looks like Hogwarts. And like we got to see like the street where like Diagon Alley
Is it
was,
Victoria Street?
yeah, inspired by, and like where supposedly, I mean, I don't know if all of this is like facts, but like supposedly where J.K. Rowling like got her inspiration for a lot of things from Harry Potter, which it's so obvious because it just like feels like you're in Hogsmeade, or you're in like, I don't know, it just felt very Harry Potter-esque, and it was really, really cool. So then we got Sunday. Sorry, what do you want to say?
I'll just that's what I was gonna say.
So because it was Sunday, we wanted to make a reservation to get Sunday roast. So they have like traditional Sunday roast in the UK and in Scotland, where you get like a meat, potatoes, Yorkshire pudding, gravy. It's like a traditional Sunday thing.
Yeah, and I love Yorkshire pudding because they're a lot more popular in Canada than they are here. Like I don't know anyone that makes them here, but I grew up eating them all the time there. Yeah. So no, it was good. There was 4 different meat options, and I got like the safe. I don't know. I like took the safe option and got the chicken. I don't know why, but everyone else got like either beef or pork, and mine was the most boring.
Oh, the beef was the best. It was like this thin prime rib kind of, multiple slices of this thin prime rib with mashed potatoes. I didn't get Yorkshire pudding because they didn't have gluten-free Yorkshire pudding, but they gave me some gluten-free toast to go with my gravy. Roasted carrots. Anyway, the only thing here.
That was the only thing you didn't get to have.
Was the Yorkshire pudding.
Okay.
I got everything else. Yeah.
Everything else.
And like
the gravy and everything was gluten-free.
Yeah. And our waitress was amazing. She was like, this is what you can and can't have. We will make sure that we bring everything out that you can have. The only thing is, I thought I had made the reservation for Sunday roast, but I made the reservation during Sunday roast hours, but I didn't select that we wanted Sunday roast. So we sit down and they were like, okay, what can we get you? And we were like, oh, we want to get the Sunday roast. And they were like, did you make a reservation? And I'm like, yeah, we made a reservation. And she was like, oh, it doesn't look like you made a reservation for Sunday roast. And I was like, my heart sunk to my stomach, because I already had made a couple mistakes that like.
Well, yeah, eventually
good at making reservations.
Eventually we banned Lauren from doing anything like on behalf of all of us on this trip. Because Lauren is so good at so many things, but if there's any like really fine print or anything on something, like she might miss it.
Yeah, so I will miss it. I did twice.
Yeah.
So then they were like, oh, you know what? You have to make a reservation for Sunday roast because we only do limited amount. And I'm like looking over at our friends, and I'm like, you guys, I screwed up again. And they were like, but you know what? Like,
they gave it to
we'll do it for you. And I was like, oh, hallelujah. So that was like our friend Kim, who was with us. She was like, this has been my favorite meal of the trip so far. And like, she still talks about it to this day. Like, she's like, it's the best meal.
Desserts.
And the desserts.
Which you got a gluten-free, that's right.
Gluten-free lemon waffle with lemon curd and lemon meringue and lemon sorbet on top. It was so good.
Here's the thing about meringue. I'm not like I could take or leave meringue.
Oh, I could leave it. I'm not interested in meringue.
This meringue though.
I was licking every last spoonful off the plate. Like I could have licked the plate. It was so good.
And then I got like a soaked bread pudding type thing that wasn't gluten-free, but was probably the best dessert I had on this trip. Just like
the meal was just really good.
In general, I feel like England and Scotland get a reputation for having like bad food, but I loved all the food in England and Scotland, even the traditional stuff that we'll get to. It was called like the bees and waffle.
No.
Squirrel and waffle.
Not squirrel. Definitely wasn't
Goose,
squirrel.
Duck and waffle.
Oh, duck and waffle?
Duck and waffle.
Yeah, I think it was called duck and waffle. Why don't I have any pictures on my phone?
You were
I do.
Too busy eating everything.
Waffle.
Yeah, it's called Duck and Waffle, I think.
Yeah, Duck and Waffle. That's where we had. And it's just like right walking distance off of the Royal Mile. So you can.
And it's like kind of like a modern looking restaurant.
And it's like kind of up a couple stories up. So you're kind of like really overlooking. Cool. Yeah, cool restaurant.
Duck and Waffle.
Really, really good food.
Anyway, that night we ended up just going to a pizza place. But tell them about your experience when you went in and you wanted to ask.
Yeah. So like everyone was like, let's meet back up for dinner. And then we wanted to have like the traditional pub experience. So I found a restaurant on Atlee, and it was right next to the super cool pub, which there's multiple pubs on every single block. So I'm like, we can find a pub anywhere. But I found a restaurant called Mama's Pizza, right? Yeah, Mama's Pizza. And it's also right off the Royal Mile. And I went in because I saw that they had gluten-free options. And I went in and I asked the waitress, I said, hey, I'm wondering what your gluten-free protocols are. And she was like, oh, we have gluten-free stuff. And she kind of opens up the menu. And then this guy in the back overhears our conversation. And he must be like a bigger upper guy. I don't know, like,
Was he the chef? Or
I don't know what he was, but he was in charge. So he like came and he was like, oh, come back in the kitchen. We'll show you what we do. He comes, brings me back into the kitchen, shows me that they have a separate counter for all the gluten-free pizzas. He shows me where all the gluten pizzas are prepared. And like, you can see that there's like, kind of like flour on the, counters. And he was like, and don't worry. He said, all the flour that we use is, polenta flour. Polenta
yeah,
flour?
polenta.
Polenta. So he was like, there's never any flour in the air because we use polenta flour for
Like to make sure the dough doesn't stick.
yeah, to make sure the dough doesn't
That's
stick
what
to anything.
instead of throwing down flour, they throw down polenta.
Yeah, so there's no flour in the air. He's like, of
Yeah.
course we're not 100% gluten-free dedicated restaurant. He's like, but we have all these protocols in place and we'll take care of you. And these are the things that we do. And I was like, how cool. Like it was just so cool that he brought me back into the kitchen and showed me the process.
Yeah.
And I just was like, why isn't every gluten-free pizza place doing the polenta thing? Like, it's so smart. I don't think polenta is like expensive like gluten-free flour is, but it's like, if you're doing that for all the pizzas so that they don't stick, then you don't have flour in the air. Anyway, so we all, like everyone got gluten pizza, but I got gluten-free
Yeah.
pizza. They had a separate stone and a separate oven, all of that.
And it was fine pizza. Like pizza's my favorite food. I think about pizza every day. So like I can be picky with pizza, but I'll eat any pizza at the same time. But yeah, like it was fine. It wasn't anything special. But I'm just glad that
My pizza was good. I got like arugula, prosciutto, and like shaved mozzarella cheese on top. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So that was our like whole day in Edinburgh. And so I was like, okay, now we're gonna get in the car and we're gonna start driving up through the Highlands. So we all kind of stopped at a little market and got snacks and treats. And I got some char products, some char crackers.
Where did you get those, Char? At a market?
Oh, like at a gas station.
Okay,
Well,
cool.
I guess it wasn't a gas station because there's no gas stations in that
It was
country.
just like a little food market.
It was just like a little like bodega market.
That's cool.
So I got some hard-boiled eggs, which is very classic, very, very classic for me. I got hard-boiled eggs because they're just like one of those things where you're like, it's gluten-free, it's protein, like hard-boiled eggs is my best friend when I travel. And then we ended up going to another thing that I did notice, which I think it is a food law there. It's a law there that every restaurant, no matter whether they're gluten-free or not, there's always a sign that says like, please let your staff know of any allergens. It was like everywhere. There were signs everywhere, even if the place wasn't gluten-free, like they just were more allergen friendly. So like, let's say you had a peanut allergy, everyone has signs saying like, please inform us of your allergy and we'll do what we can to prepare food for you. And so we ended up stopping at a little like teeny tiny little like shop on this drive, and I went in and they had gluten-free options. And then I asked some follow-up questions and she was like, you know what? She's like, we don't have any dedicated space and everything's cooked on the same flat top.
This was like a tiny
town.
This was like this wasn't even a town. It was like a little tiny
yeah,
restaurant
on the side of the road.
On the side of the road. So like, yeah, it totally made sense that they.
I mean, if you don't have celiac disease and you just want to have a gluten-free option, they had the option there for you, but this was not considered celiac safe. But the cool thing was that the lady that was taking my order and I was asking my questions to, she was like, oh no, I'm so sorry. Like it wouldn't be safe for you. Like there's really nothing that we can do. It's such a small, teeny tiny little kitchen. Like she didn't make any promises to me. She just like made it clear to me. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So everyone else got breakfast there.
And that's the first time we tried like the haggis and the blood pudding and some of the traditional Scottish food. Yeah.
And it was okay, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, it wasn't bad.
Yeah. So
like
they got to try that.
If you don't think about what haggis is and what blood pudding is, before you eat it, then you're set. Yeah, it tastes fine.
So then we ended up driving and spent like most of the day driving to a little island.
So what's the first thing you ate that day? Where then?
I'm like looking through my pictures and I'm like,
Well, yeah.
I had snacks. I had snacks. Like it was mostly a snack day for me because I didn't have a ton of options. Which was okay. Like I slept in the car for a big chunk of the ride. And then I had some snacks. And then we arrived, but the drive through the Highlands to get up to the Isle of Skye, which is where we stayed. You should look it up on a map. It's
Yeah,
absolutely
we stayed
incredible.
in Portree.
Portree. And Portree had gluten-free options. I did do my research. One on Find Me Gluten Free Atlee, and I joined a Gluten Free Scotland Facebook group, and I was able to ask a lot of questions there and get a lot of clarification on the Facebook group. So that was really, really helpful in advance because I had asked about like these small towns on our way to the Isle of Skye, and all the responses were like, you'll be able to find food everywhere you go. Like, don't worry about it.
So we get to our hotel that we're staying at, but it wasn't, it was like a pub with just like rooms above like above
Yeah, it was from a fairy tale.
upstairs. Yeah, which was really cool. Like you walk in, they're like, oh, we're supposed to be staying here. Where do we check in? Like
We're
talking,
at the bar.
we're at the bar, and they're like, right here.
They
And
hand us our key.
they hand us like a physical key, right? Like not a key card or anything. And then they find out like we want to eat there. So
They're like, come back in like 30 minutes and we'll have your table ready.
yeah. And then that meal that night, yeah, just like an awesome pub. And
Well, and ironically, I had chosen that restaurant. Like, so the
oh,
pub
that's
has a
right.
restaurant in it.
We were gonna eat there anyway.
That was the restaurant that I had chose
without knowing
without knowing that's where we were staying. Yeah. So we get there and I had seen online that they had gluten-free options. So I'm like, this is where we're eating. And then we get there and our friend's like, this is where we're staying. Like, this is our little inn that we're staying at. And they were incredibly amazing. Like tons of gluten-free options on their menu. And I was like, I see that you guys have fish and chips. Like, do you guys have a dedicated fryer? And she was like, of course we do. She was like, do you have celiac disease? And I said, yeah, I do. And she was like, we got this gluten-free, this gluten-free. Like she just was like, it just was so easy. And like another theme of another restaurant that we ate at was like, we were in this teeny tiny small town and it was getting late and there was nothing on the apps. And I was like, everyone was hungry. So this was before we got to Portree, I guess. But
no, it wasn't. This was on our way to Inverness.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the inn then. So anyway, I ended up getting fish and chips. So good. Redeemed from the other gluten-free fish and chips that we had.
Yeah, they were delicious. 2 giant pieces of fish.
Huge pieces of fish.
Yeah, amazing. I think we both just said peaches.
Peaches of fish. And then we're like, let's get dessert. And I see that they have a gluten-free, dairy-free chocolate torte with vegan ice cream. And I'm like, oh, I'll get that. That's perfect. I won't have to take like a milky pill or anything. So.
But then they come out and on the blackboard, they write
sticky toffee pudding.
Sticky toffee pudding.
And
yeah.
Barrett and our friends are like, oh, sticky
that.
toffee pudding. And I'm like, and I had already ordered my like chocolate torte. And so they bring it all out and I was just like drooling over it. Like it looked so good. And the girl comes over and she's like, oh, the sticky toffee pudding's gluten-free. And I'm like, what?
Oh, you would never know. You would never know.
Yeah, our friends were like eating it and she was like, oh yeah, it's gluten-free. You can have some. Like it's all gluten-free. And so I tried the sticky toffee pudding and I'm like, I wish I had gotten this. It was so good.
But your torte was also really good.
Like, yeah, and the ice cream was vegan. It must have been like house-made ice cream. It was so
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the other thing is that the ice cream was dairy-free and like no other people that were sitting next to us were
ordering it and they didn't know it was like vegan ice cream.
Yeah.
Anyway, so super like that was a really good meal. And it was just cool because we were in a pub, our rooms were upstairs. It was just a really cool night. And then the next day we did a lot of hiking and doing trails and we hiked a hike called Old Man of Store.
Yeah.
Old Man of Store. Absolutely breathtaking, incredible, lots of steps, switchbacks. It was definitely a hike, sweating our faces off, but it was like cloud coverage, fog was coming in and out. Really, really cool. Like I just felt like we were on Lord of the Rings. Like this is so cool.
The top of that hike was the most beautiful spot I've ever stood. Like it was just absolutely incredible.
Like we all like cried at some point. Like over how majestic
at some point
it was.
Yeah. And
like,
just the Highlands in Scotland, like
Oh,
It's just the most beautiful.
there was one specific moment that we're driving and we kind of like turn a corner where there were a bunch of trees and all of a sudden there's this huge opening and we all gasp. We're screaming. Our friends like trying to pull over the car because we're like, we have to stop here and get pictures. It was just like so
I feel
incredible.
like last time I freaked out that hard is when
Spider-Man?
yes, watching Spider-Man 3 when
All the Spider-Mans come.
when you find out that Tobey Maguire and what's his name?
Yeah,
Andrew Garfield are in it. Yeah, that's the last time
Yeah.
I freaked out that hard.
So that was incredible. So then we spent the day hiking and we just brought snacks with us throughout that whole day. We didn't eat lunch. So then we come back. Um, so then we come back and the next morning, we just eat at the same inn that we're staying at. And they have like same traditional breakfast, like haggis and blood pudding and like all the traditional beans on toast, eggs. So
Yeah.
I ended up getting like gluten-free eggs. They had dedicated fryer for the hash browns. So I got to try these triangle hash browns that Jared had had several days before that I just was like, oh, I wish I could eat those hash browns, but I couldn't because they were in a shared fryer. So like mushrooms, tomatoes, poached eggs, beans on toast, hash browns, just a traditional Scottish breakfast. So we all got to eat at the inn and then we kind of just like packed. They had like continental stuff. So like we grabbed like oranges, yogurts, like stuff like that.
Yeah, it was great.
And took that for like the rest of our day.
If you're ever in Portree on Isle of Skye,
Yeah,
like
Portree.
stay at this inn.
It's so
They
cute.
treated us so well. The
charming.
breakfast, everything was so good.
Charming, but also like Viking-ish.
Like rugged, yeah.
Yeah, kind of rugged. But then also in the same plaza, like the little town square of this teeny tiny little town, there was a bakery.
That's right.
There was a bakery that had gluten-free options. So they had a blueberry muffin and a brownie. So I went and bought a blueberry muffin and a brownie just to have with me for the rest of the day whenever I would need a snack. So then we just loaded up on snacks and just kept driving, seeing castles, pulling over so many times just for pictures and videos. And Jared brought his drone. We ended up seeing a castle. We ended up stopping and touring a big, huge castle. And that was really, really cool because we pulled up Jared's family tree. And I knew Jared had ancestral heritage from Scotland. And so I pulled up his family tree and I like logged him in. And we found out that he has a fourth great grandmother that is from the island up above Isle of Skye, but that her ancestors were the ones who built this castle. So like it was Jared's fourth great grandmother who was born in Scotland and then immigrated to Nova Scotia and died in Nova Scotia. So she was the first one to leave Scotland. And that was just so cool because I'm like, Jared, like this is so cool that this is where your heritage is from, which if you're watching on YouTube, and you're looking at Jared, like Jared's half Mexican, so you would never guess that he's Scottish.
That's what's funny is if you're like a direct descendant from the MacLeod clan, which is the clan that owns this castle, you got to sign this book.
And so Jared got to sign it.
So I signed the
really
book,
cool.
and they're probably thinking like, "Who's this Mexican guy signing Scottish?"
We like asked him because we showed him our family tree, and we're like, "This is his family. Like this is so cool." So we spent a good chunk of the day touring that castle and the gardens and stuff. And then we went to the fairy pools, which is really, really cool. Just like little waterfalls that are just coming from this huge mountain range all the way down this valley. And it's just carved out waterfalls everywhere and like little majestic pools. People were getting in and like doing cold plunges because it's cold. You should look up the fairy pools in Scotland on TikTok. There's lots of really cool videos. So we spent quite a bit of time doing a hike
again, perfect weather. Like we all brought jackets, hats, like rain boots, everything. And I didn't pull out
your coat
one time in Inverness. Yeah, like it was just
we got super lucky with the weather.
But that night, so we were driving from Isle of Skye to Inverness. This was going to be the last city that we
drove past Loch Ness. We wanted to see the Loch Ness monster, but
and
we didn't see it.
Lauren couldn't find a restaurant on Atlee or Find Me Gluten Free that was open because it was pretty late. And so again, Lauren alluded to this a little bit earlier, but so there was one restaurant that was open. It wasn't on any of the apps, but she just decided to walk in.
Yeah, Jared's like, why don't you just run in and ask them? And this place was called Fiddler's. So I go in, I look at the menu, I open it up, there's nothing labeled, which I kind of had come to learn that like they don't label anything, they just know what's gluten-free and what's not. So the waitress, like the hostess comes over and I was just like, can you just tell me if you have any gluten-free options? And she like pulls open the menu and she's like, this is gluten-free, this is gluten-free, this is gluten-free, this is gluten-free.
And this is the
And
hostess again.
yeah.
This is the hostess.
And I was like, okay, thank you so much. And she's like, I also have like a e-PDF thing on my tablet that you can see all the allergens that we have listed on every single entree, every single dessert, everything. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So I run out to the car and I'm like, okay, guys, we're eating here. And they all come inside. And our waitress was like, do you have celiac disease? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, okay, like you can have this, 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 and this. This is what we'll do differently. This is what the chef will do differently. Like the kitchen will be notified. And like, it wasn't on any of the apps. Nothing was labeled on the menu, but I still went in and they still could do everything for me.
So the point of that is even if you can't find something on your app, if you walk into any restaurant, odds are like they're going to be educated and you're going to be able to get a decent meal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. So don't be afraid.
Yeah, because like what did you even order? That I got this like we all venison stroganoff. Right?
Everything that we ate was so good. First, we got like this incredible soup that was gluten-free. So we all got a soup and bread to start. And then Jared got a venison mushroom stroganoff with like steamed purple cabbage, creamy mashed potatoes. And it wasn't labeled gluten-free, but like the lady was like, oh, that one's also gluten-free after Jared ordered it. And I was like, amazing. So I knew I could try it.
My meal, yeah.
And then I got this like carrot mash. It was like half carrot mash, half mashed potatoes with this incredible chicken and this white cream sauce on top. Just such a good meal. It was just like a warm, hearty meal. Don't you feel like that's what it felt like? It was just like, yeah, it was very delicious. And then we just had to continue driving to get to our Airbnb to get to Inverness. And then the next day we had one full day in Inverness before we flew back to London. So I had planned and I had found a restaurant on Atlee.
Oh yeah.
This little restaurant that like
so many good meals we had.
Yeah, it's called Velocity Cafe. It's like a little cafe inside of a bike shop.
Yeah, it's half cafe, half bike shop.
Really cute.
So
it's a vegetarian restaurant, so they do eggs. So we went there for breakfast, which was perfect because we all got like some sort of egg dish. Jared got potato hash.
So, okay, so back up. I get eggs Benedict everywhere that I go. That's my favorite breakfast. So if a restaurant has eggs Benedict, I'm gonna order it.
Always.
But instead of an English muffin, it was on like a potato patty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like imagine like
it was gluten-free.
Shredded scalloped potatoes with like maybe even like cheese in between the layers.
But it was like deep fried.
And then it was like fried, and that was the base for his Benedict.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. If I go to like a vegan or vegetarian restaurant, like I'm never excited. You know, just because like I don't know, I like to leave restaurants like very full.
And a lot of the times you don't leave super full.
Yeah. But this place, like this is probably one of the best bites that I had.
Yeah,
on the trip was this eggs Benedict, Velocity.
And then I got an avocado toast. They had a dedicated like flat top for all the gluten-free cooking, toaster, everything.
And then they had baked
goods too.
Yeah.
So I ended up, of course, there were 4 available, and I refrained from buying all 4, even though I wanted to. I only bought 2. I got a brownie, a raspberry brownie, and I got one other thing.
It was like a
blondie. It was like a blondie cake kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I also got avocado toast with poached eggs and like microgreens and tomatoes on top. Just a really good like microgreen avocado toast.
I'd say a good chunk of the menu was gluten-free.
Yes, majority was gluten-free. And they were very educated. It was a really good experience. So then we ate there for breakfast and we just kind of explored Inverness. We went to a cool bookshop. We walked along some trails, and just had a short day there. Like we weren't there super long.
Yeah, and then for lunch, that's when you ate that.
Yeah, so for lunch we were at the airport, and it was like an hour and 30-minute flight back to London or something. And I was like, okay, we're all gonna need to get lunch at this airport. And it was a small airport, like
very small.
Like one terminal, like 2 terminals.
The size of the Provo airport, if you've ever been to the Provo.
Yeah, it's very small. So I was like, I'm not gonna be able to find food here. And I just kind of went up to this little kiosk and I saw that they called them toasties, which we would call grilled cheese.
Yeah.
They're called Toasties, and it was a mozzarella and pesto toasty that was inside a bag, like a sealed bag, and everyone was getting them. Like everyone was like, "Oh, I'll get this toasty, I'll get this toasty," and they give them to the worker, and she goes and heats them up in like a panini press. And so I see that they have this gluten-free toasty, and I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna bring it to the counter, and I'm like,
You automatically assumed you wouldn't be able to
oh,
eat it
I was
anymore.
just thinking I'd eat it
Yeah.
cold,
Yeah.
you know? And so I go up to the counter and I'm like, do you guys have a way to prepare gluten-free toasties? And she's like, yes. Like she was just like, we sure do. And she's like, we have a separate thing and we line it with parchment
And
paper.
this is like a tiny airport,
Teeny tiny
like a
airport.
kiosk,
Oh,
not even a restaurant.
yeah, a
This is
kiosk.
like, yeah, this is like they barely have any space and they have a gluten-free
And
panini
and
press.
at the place, yeah, and at the little thing,
The
I
lemon,
took a picture of it.
wait, the lemon tart?
The lemon tart. So in the airport, they have snacks. They have like some snacks on the counter. They have a lemon tart. They have a
The brand is We Love Cake.
We Love Cake is the brand. They have, it's all gluten-free, wheat-free, and milk-free, the whole brand. They have a salted caramel chocolate tart. They're like mini tarts, like the size of your palm. And so I got a tart and I got a toasty, mozzarella toasty, and I ate a fresh, hot grilled cheese, mozzarella grilled cheese in the airport before we traveled. And then I saved my little lemon tart for the flight back to Salt Lake City. I'm not joking you. I came to Jared, I came to he came to my seat because we didn't get to sit next to each other. And I was like, I should have bought 10 of those lemon tarts. It was one of my favorite things that I ate that I found at a kiosk in the Inverness airport. It was so good. Like, it was one of my favorite desserts. Anyway, so like there's just stuff everywhere. Like it is not hard to find gluten-free things, which was just like a miracle, such a blessing. This whole trip was just like, oh my gosh, God is watching out for us 24/7. I just felt like we were like, man, we are so lucky. This has been the best trip ever. The only issue was me forgetting to get my food for the flight home. So that sucked. But then we flew back to London and we had basically like 6 or 7 hours, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours left in London.
So we wanted one last hurrah.
So we're like, let's go out to dinner, let's go back. So we had gotten an airport hotel, but we were like, we have to go back into the city. So we got an Uber, we went back into the city and we went and ate at Dishoom, which was the first place that we wanted to go that had that super long line. So we went there.
And this is an Indian restaurant that, yeah, like at most locations they have like live jazz music a lot of nights. Really cool, like, yeah, really
Well,
cool
they couldn't
vibe.
get us in. There was a wait, but they said you can come to the bar and wait for your table. So we go to the bar, they bring us the menu. They have 100% alcohol-free menu as well. So we all get drinks because none of us drink alcohol. And we all tried different like non-alcoholic drinks. And we waited there for a while, like jazz music is playing, so cool. And we get to this Indian restaurant and the waiter is like, here's what you can have. She has a paper menu and she's circling everything that I can have, crossing out what I can't have.
Pen, yeah.
And we ended up ordering some shrimp appetizers, like some
blackened
shrimp kebab
and
appetizers.
Then like several
we got like
Indian
4
dishes.
different curries. We got like a really interesting like Indian salad that was really good. And we all just kind of shared everything. And it was just like the last hurrah of the night.
Yeah.
And then after it's over, everyone's kind of like, ooh, I want ice cream. Like, I just want like a little treat. So I pull up my app and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're across the street, like walking distance to a gelato shop.
Yeah, we want a gelato.
So we go to this gelato shop. Super cool gelato. They designed the gelato like a flower inside your cone.
What's it called? Let's get the name.
Yeah, let me pull it up because it's in London.
Pull that up. So so there's like 10 Dishoom locations too. So we went to one in Kensington, but there's lots of them. But right across this place was this shop, and then Lauren told him they were gluten-free, and he asked, "Is it an allergy?" And when she said yes, he starts this whole procedure.
Oh yeah.
Okay, where he gets fresh scooper and washes his hands,
changes his gloves,
fresh
gets the gluten-free cone.
And then he doesn't just scoop the gelato, and she got a dairy-free one.
I got 3 different flavors.
Into the cup. Do they have a gluten-free cone?
They had a gluten-free cone.
Yeah, into the cone. No.
And I wanted like the flour experience, but I was like, didn't think they'd be able to do it. I don't know. In my head, I was like, I bet they can't with like the sorbettos.
They
gelatos are like a lot more thick and sorbetto is more icy.
But before he gives it to her, he spends like 4 to 5 minutes just like scraping
with
the.
like a new clean scraper, like where you scoop it up. He cleans all of the scoops and basically removes the whole section that everyone else had been scooping from, gets another clean scooper and scoops up my ice cream. And he does this for all three flavors. And he makes my ice cream, like my gelato, into this flower shape, gloves, everything. Like
Oh,
he
you got the flour? I forgot you did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that's why he had asked me. He's like, is this just preference or is this an allergy? And I said, it's an allergy. And he did all of these steps.
Yeah, just to avoid crossing, like, because they're scooping the gelato and putting it on the cones. So
Hmm.
it's like the scoop
There's
itself.
risk for cross
Yeah, so
contamination.
he removed like the whole outer layer of all three flavors. And like the whole thing, yeah, probably took like
It had to
7
have taken
minutes.
him. Yeah, it took him quite a bit of time.
Oh,
And I like took
it
a
was
time
amazing.
lapse of him doing it just to like show like just like the care and love that they put into making that for me. And I was so grateful and I expressed my gratitude so
And he
much to
didn't
them.
make Lauren feel like she was a total POS
No,
either.
no, he
Yeah.
was so,
Yeah.
yeah, he was like, of course, yeah, no problem. Like they
Yeah.
just are so considerate. It's called Amarino, gelato. Anyway, it was incredible. It was super, super fun. I got mango, raspberry, and chocolate
That's right.
gelato. And then we went and stayed at our hotel, and the next morning we had to get to the airport, and we get to the airport and I pull up on Atlee, we find a restaurant. They have a PDF tablet that they send with me to our table, and they're like, you can look through here. This has everything that you can eat at the airport. Okay. So I'm able to get eggs, bacon, poached eggs, toast, avocado, and it was all kind of like a la carte. And I just assembled the avocado toast myself. But they had like an allergy flag, they had the allergy PDF, all at the airport. So I was able to get a big breakfast at the airport, and then at another airport kiosk, they have the toasties. So I'm like, they have the toasties and they have sandwiches. So like you can go to this kiosk that has like
Oh
salads,
yeah, you got another
sandwiches,
sandwich.
chips, all that stuff. And I end up getting a cheddar and arugula
And
sandwich.
it didn't look like it was going to be good, but you said it was.
It was. It was actually so good, which I'm so grateful that I found it because the meal I didn't get to get the meal on the flight, remember?
Yeah.
So I saved this for like 5 or 6 hours onto the flight, but then I also I had that lemon tort on the flight and I
Lauren
had
also had
snacks.
she had an entire row to herself. So
Yeah, hallelujah.
she laid down and slept for like a good 3-4 hours
Yeah,
on
I
that
had a
flight.
good sleep on that flight home. But that was the 10 days that we did in London and in Scotland, and we had an absolute blast. And I feel like now that we've been on this trip, I feel like Scotland is in the top three favorite countries I've ever traveled to, not only for like its majesty, but for food. Like it was so incredible. Like my top three countries I've ever traveled to that I've loved have been Italy, Costa Rica, and now Scotland. Like Scotland
Yeah.
has made its way. Like I feel like if we ever go to London again, I don't necessarily feel like there's ever a reason to go back to London unless like we have to fly into London for something. I would go back to Scotland though, 100%. Like we had a blast. We did all of the like London traditional touristy things, but it's kind of like one of those things. Once you've done London, you've done London, like go see somewhere else in the world. But I would go back to Scotland because it was just so incredibly beautiful, breathtaking, and majestic, and the food was incredible. Right?
Yeah, it was a great trip. Definitely, if you haven't been to Europe and you're gluten free, like you don't know what you're missing.
Yeah.
That's the place to be. I mean, even Italy was like a gluten free paradise. And then yeah, just like so accommodating, and Lauren was able to eat so much good food. So
Yeah, we had the
it
best
was
time.
great.
So there's our review. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for watching and thanks for listening to the podcast. If you have any questions specifically and you're planning on taking a trip there soon, feel free to DM me and ask me any questions that you might have. I'm more than happy to help in any way that I can. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful gluten-free week. Bye.
Bye.